If I'm a landowner or around along there, I'm rightfully concerned, and partially because I just haven't received any information from Alto. For this trade-off, for this $90 billion, what are we getting here? And we're just not hearing any communication.
For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini here in Cobourg, Ontario at the Ontario Landowners Association General Meeting. We're at the Cobourg Legion Hall, and I'm joined today by Member of Parliament Philip Lawrence for this riding, Northumberland Clark. And Mr. Lawrence, we've done a few different interviews on the Alto high-speed rail boondoggle in particular, and this $90 billion mega project and counting, I would say. Thanks so much for being here today to talk to these concerned landowners. And I think the most notable thing that has changed since our last interview is now, of course, the Liberals have secured a sneaky backdoor majority government. How does that change how the Conservatives are coming out against Alto and these other sort of Liberal funded mega projects moving forward?
Yeah, I don't know if it really affects our what we're going to do. I mean, we're going to fight this tooth and nail. We're going to continue to fight this tooth and nail. I guess potentially we're more reliant, which we already are as being a grassroots party, on the constituents, on people helping us, supporting us, and organizing. And so if you share our leaders' opposition to the Alto, I highly recommend you get engaged, get organized, so that we can help push this $90 billion boondoggle off until we can have Pierre Poilievre as Prime Minister and cancel it for good. The idea that the government can come in and take this land for a project that is not fully well baked, fully well thought out, I think should be a little bit chilling to all of us. And the fact that they then doubled down on this in Bill C-15, which is the budget bill, and they enhanced and increased the ability to expropriate property should cause us all a little concern, and certainly cause us all to have some questions about this process.
And recently online, I'm seeing a lot of landowners who are receiving mail and notices from Alto that they are to come onto their properties, to conduct surveys and soil assessments and these sorts of things. From your government's perspective, what's your message to people who are saying, we have no idea what to do, this is our private property, and we don't want anybody from Alto or affiliates on our land?
Yeah, I mean, if in fact you are a property owner and you don't want someone on the property, you have rights, and I would recommend you utilize those rights. But I guess it would go back to the fact that, and I told this directly to Alto, you guys are, in addition to the opposition that currently exists organically, you guys are creating additional opposition by your poor communication. Alto has done a very poor job in communicating exactly where the route will be, what the impact will be, where the crossings will be, and if I'm a landowner or around along there, I'm rightfully concerned, and partially because I just haven't received any information from Alto. So if Alto wants access, they at the very least owe a duty of communication to the residents.
Now, recently it's also come out that Anne-Marie Godou is the Vice President of Environment at Alto, and that is Finance Minister now, Philippe Champagne's partner, whatever that means, wife or otherwise. The Conservatives are calling for an ethics investigation. What are your hopes on that, and do you think that anything will actually come from it? Yeah,
we need to have the Finance Minister come and testify. There's a lot of questions. He said that there was an ethics screen in place, which has, I think, the ethics commissioner has agreed that the ethics screen has been in place. But we've also seen him vote on Bill C-15, which of course had the expropriation legislation, and also has spoken out in favor of the Alto. So what is the value of an ethics screen if it actually doesn't do anything?
And we see this project again, $90 billion and counting. Already $4 billion has been paid out, and it's leaving many constituents and concerned residents asking the question, for what?
Yeah, and that's it, right? Like, we see the cost benefit, everything. Thomas Sowell once said, in politics there are no choices but just trade-offs. And so what are we, for this trade-off, for this $90 billion, what are we getting here? And we're just not hearing any communication. And as I said publicly, and was expressed in the meeting today, like, that $90 billion is just the money they're throwing out at very early days. We saw in the California high-speed rail that the cost dramatically increased. increased. We've seen many Canadian infrastructure projects double, triple in cost. And so how can we justify this to especially folks who are maybe in Vancouver, that they're going to have to shill out $8,000 per household for a train they may never use?
That's another really great point, because the Liberals frame this as a nation-building project, but this is speaking to a very small subsect of the country. And yes, it's a highly populated, very dense corridor of Ontario specifically, but this certainly, in my view, is nothing nation-building.
Yeah, the impact on this, I think, as more and more economists and other academics come out, is limited. And certainly, unlike, of course, the railway that brought us all together from coast to coast, what literally went from coast to coast, this is a relatively small area of our country. And so I just don't know how a Liberal politician can go to someone in Calgary and say, we need $8,000 from your household to build this rail that you'll likely never ride on. So.
And I know that you've said, and here today also specifically in this meeting, that an initiative like this is noble, and there is a need for better transportation in the country, and especially on these more high traffic, densely populated corridors. What would a Conservative government do away from something like Alto to appeal to that demographic that is looking for better transportation?
Yeah, we need infrastructure. We need pipelines, and even I would include additional rail, and having rail between, say, Peterborough and Toronto is something I think is pretty exciting. But it needs to make business sense, right? Like, it can't cost $90 billion minimum and then forecast it to lose $2 billion, especially when we have an air travel system that is basically at the cost of the traveler. There's actually very limited, if any, subsidies from the government for air. So why, if you choose to go on air, you don't get a subsidy, but you get $100 billion plus $2 billion every year if you choose to go on rail? It doesn't make sense. We need projects at the end of the day. It sounds simple, but it's just true. We need projects that make sense. Because the way a high-speed train works, it's not like a normal train where you can have overland crossings, which means you can have fairly frequent crossings. With high-speed rail, because of the speed that train is going at, you cannot have an overland crossing, which means you either have to go over or under. Each one of those crossings will cost millions, if not tens of millions of dollars, which means that you can't have crossings as frequently as you would with traditional or rail, which has the effect of bisecting communities. And I asked Alto, I asked the minister, how frequent will you have those crossings? And no one would answer that question. And I don't know about you, but I don't get a great feeling when people don't answer my question that they're going to have great news for me going forward. And so the effect of it could be is if there is a large gap between crossings is to bisect communities, which means if you live on literally one side of the track and your work is on the other, your commute could go from 5 minutes to 45 minutes or an hour. If your children's schools are on the opposite side of where you live, that bus ride could go from a 5-minute bus ride to an hour-long bus ride. And perhaps the most compelling, if you live on the other side of the hospital, that 20-minute trip to the hospital could now be an hour or an hour and a half. And anyone who's been through the serious health circumstances, whether it be a heart attack or stroke, knows that every minute counts.
Now, for anybody who is still concerned and sees this as not having any recourse, what's your message to them, just in closing?
Yeah, so I often quote Barack Obama on this, and I did in my speech, is that he told a group, don't get angry, organize. And so organize. And so I've already seen a great organic group growth of Stop the Train groups come together as an organization, work together. And they said really focus on Liberal members because we're already on side on the Conservative side. And so I appreciate all the attaboys I get, and please don't stop those, but they make my day. But really, if you want to be effective, focus on members like Chris Millett, like Mark Gerenston, and others who are Liberal members who are along the line. They need to know that there's opposition to this.
And votes are potentially at stake, because if one thing speaks, as mentioned here today, it's dollars and votes.
Yeah, I agree, and make it clear that if a politician won't come out against Alto, they won't get your vote.
To find our campaign on Alto specifically, head on over to don'tgetrailroaded.ca. There you can sign our petition and join our mailing list so that you never miss a report on this topic. All of that and more at don'tgetrailroaded.ca.